About a year ago, there was a provocative cover on Newsweek magazine. It declared the end of Christian America. It got a lot of people talking. It essentially said that the influence of Christianity in American culture is on the wane. We recently sat down with a group of young evangelicals who said they agree with this theory and that it could be a good thing. You have said that the death of Christian America is a good thing.
Yeah, what I mean by that is this moving on from where people just assume that Christian ideas govern everything in our world, and Christians rely on that almost as a basis for their ideas and their thoughts, and they no longer have to qualify them to just an average person who might be skeptical or cynical. That new environment is challenging for Christians, and that's a good thing for the faith. Christianity historically has grown when it's been under pressure, when it's not been in this dominant power position. And I think in America, we've enjoyed a moment where we've had a lot more power maybe than many Christians have had throughout the ages. And so it's not a bad thing for us to be in a place where it's not just assumed that everyone's a Christian. It forces us to go deeper, forces us to go back to our roots. And I think that's a good thing for the movement of Jesus.
You agree? Why?
Because I think the church has incredible things to offer to the culture, and when it's in a place where it's comfortable, really the great gifts of the church are exercised on behalf of the common good. They lie dormant because there's no need for them to come out and really to serve. And so I think it's a chance for the church to really live forth and demonstrate the love of God, a passion for the common good, a concern for greater things other than itself. And when it's in a culture where, when the cultural story is dominated by Christianity, a lot of the best gifts of the church are dormant. So,
Shannon, a lot of people have talked about the religious right ending. Mm-hmm. Good or bad thing in your view?
I'm not sure that I agree that necessarily the religious right is ended. I'm not sure that I feel that that's even important right now. I think what's really important is the church that I feel like I'm a part of today is a church that looks outward and is not spending much time looking inward, and that's exciting for me. And I'm seeing that in the young church right now, and that's really exciting.
I think in the next generation, what we're seeing is when we talk about the religious right, I mean, really, as many have talked and documented, it was very much a focus on the political channel as a means for us to bring our ideas to bear in the public square, because there was a sense that it was slipping away. What we're seeing is the church start to flourish as Christians embrace that, the way to be Christian isn't just to vote a certain way or to align yourself with a certain political persuasion or a party, but it's to be thoughtful about all the issues confronting us and the world, and to choose how we're going to engage in those thoughtfully.
Generally, free associate for me, what are the biggest, say, 3 or 4 issues in American life that you all have on your mind right now?
Educational inequity, the fact that millions of kids in this country aren't getting the education they deserve. And I think that's one of the exciting things we're seeing, is that so many young people of faith and Christians are really being drawn to that issue, to really work in public schools solely for the purpose of making things more equitable for kids, which I think is just a huge issue in our country. And I'm excited to see the church and young people of faith in particular focusing on that.
So education, what else? What are
poverty, healthcare.
I think
your case, nuclear weapons.
Well, yeah, I'd couch it within the realm of violent human conflict. We are citizens of the most powerful nation that's ever existed, and as such, we have responsibility to deal with that power and to grapple with it in some way. And so I think that encompasses a whole spectrum of issues and activities that Christian citizens need to bring their faith to bear when they're considering. So, I mean, that would include what Shannon works on with genocide prevention and atrocities, and then what I work on with nuclear weapons.
Not one of you mentioned abortion or gay marriage. Is it telling to any of you that when I asked what are the biggest issues, nobody mentioned a traditional hot-button social issue?
It's interesting. I think one of the problems with the religious right has traditionally been their entire position has come down to what you do one day every 4 years, which is voting. And Jesus' great rebuke of the Pharisees in the scriptures was, you have lost sight of the most important matters of the law, which he calls the more weightier issues, which is justice, faithfulness, and mercy. And his phrase that he uses is, you won't even lift a finger to help. And one of the reasons that people have been so opposed to the predominant political rhetoric has been they don't lift a finger traditionally other than once a year or once every 4 years to vote. And so people look at that and go, you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. And you have to look at all of the other social conditions that cause people to be in that particular position to be forced to make choices like that. So they're putting more of their effort into being proactive rather than reactive.
I think also in the last couple of elections, you've seen so much focus on the values voters, but yet the way the media has talked about it, it's as though there are only two values that these voters care about. And I think a lot of people of faith, myself included, have just thought, well, gosh, as a person who does vote based on values, there are a lot of other values that are very important to me around poverty and justice and healthcare and education, and we really want to see those things acknowledged in terms of being values voters as well.
I think the premise of the question, what are the top 3 issues that we would see? What we're seeing now, I think, is reflective of where a generation finds itself, which is not a top 3 issues. How can you look at the world and say top 3 issues? You've got genocide, you've got AIDS, you've got climate, you've got environmental stewardship in all its forms, resource management. We can't say top 3 issues. It's not about there are a couple issues that define this generation. I think we're looking around and seeing a world that's screaming out a need. And the response is not a rank order. It's recognizing an abundance of gifts. And so you could expand this panel by 20 people and you'd just expand 20 issues where people are seeing the world in need and their Christian faith is motivating them to address it.
Here's what's changing, Dan. I think what we're finding is changing is that even when you address the question to us, what are the issues that you care about, you don't hear us define the issues in terms of something that's wrong. We're not saying abortion, we're not saying gay marriage. What we're talking about is adoption reform. What we're talking about is education reform. What we're talking about is nuclear non-proliferation, environmental stewardship. We even frame the question and the response very differently than a previous generation may have, because we're seeing the world, I think, in just a different light, that we see us having a role and an opportunity to be a part of partnering with God to solve those issues in any way that we can. And we can't do that alone, but we get the opportunity to do that. And I think it's a different mentality that we have when we even get asked this question, that we don't think in terms of what's wrong, we think in terms of what can we be doing to be a part of restoring what it is that God wants the world to look like and how things ought to be.
I know that one public perception of Christianity, and a lot of this has come out of the book that Gabe and Dave wrote on Christian, is of Christians as sort of moralizing nags. And I think what we've lost is this profound truth that Christ taught, that the world should be better because followers of Him live in it. That we're to be salt and light, and wherever we are, society should be better. People who aren't followers of Jesus Christ should live better lives because they live near Christians. That's a truth about the church that I don't think many Americans would say. You know, the world's lots better because there are Christians in it, but that we should be living lives that people do think that.
But a lot of this, again, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to go there, but it really does sound to me like an implicit critique of the generation that came before you.
I think that's for observers like you to decide. I don't think we're comfortable saying, because it doesn't feel true of who we are, that what we're doing is a movement of critique against something else. It's not a reaction against. It's a going back to the basics and the roots of applying what does it mean to follow Jesus in the world that we've grown up in and the world we now live in, faced with the challenges that that world presents to us, and we're responding in that way. So whether it's critique or not of a past generation, others can decide, but it's not motivating what it is that of who we are.
Right, so instead of when somebody says evangelical or Christian in the popular imagination, instead of that invoking images of somebody with duct tape over their mouth standing in front of the Supreme Court or rallying against gay marriage, it might conjure up an image of somebody trying to stop genocide.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a time where within just a little over a day we could be in brothels in Southeast Asia where 4- and 5-year-old girls are being sold for sex, or we could be in the jungles of northeastern Congo where Kony is slaughtering thousands and kidnapping children as young as 4 years old. And I'm excited about a church that shows up in that. And I mean shows up on time and shows up living out tenets of justice and mercy that are just thick in the Bible that I believe in. And I'm really excited about that. And one that's daring, and one that's courageous, and one that's willing to go and jump off a cliff for it and not just sit around and talk about it from a distance.
Our thanks to our panel of young evangelical activists. That's going to do it for Beliefs this time. I'm Dan Harris. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.